So for people who just joined, we are waiting a little bit to give the other people a chance to join in before we starting. People are dropping in here. I guess if everyone is joining at the same time, it's taking a little while before everyone is connected.
Okay, now I think you can go on. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Then welcome everyone to this webinar on exoplan, guide creator, and immediate load. My name is Elin Engfeldt. I'm an application specialist at exocad, and I have my colleagues here. You can introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Lucas. You start.
Okay. Hey, I'm Lucas Ciardullo. I'm also an application support specialist at exocad.
Yeah, my name is Michael Kohnen, head of application support. Hello.
So, and you guys will support me answering questions during the webinar. So if anybody have any questions, you can just write them. There's to your right, you have, I guess, the attendees have it on the right too, that they can type in questions.
Yeah, so don't hesitate to write your questions even during the demonstration of Elin, because if it's an interesting question, we could stop her and ask the question so that it'll be answered for everybody here. And furthermore, we figured out in the last webinars that very often too many questions came up at the end of the webinar, and then time was running out and we were not able to answer to all those questions. To other important information, very common question is also if the webinar is available as a recorded video. Yes, it is. On exocad webinars, you can see all the previous webinars available as a record. In a couple of weeks, we will also create a playlist on our YouTube channel. Another information, we had also a couple of requests for the last webinars where people are asking for attendance certificate. Of course, we cannot send you a kind of official exocad attendance certificate as we do it for certified trainers or resellers, but you'll receive, if you followed the entire webinar, you will receive an email confirming that you attended the webinar in case you need this maybe for your employer. Okay, that's it, Elin. You can go on.
All right. Well, then I'll start. And here, I'll just hide this panel here on the side. So we're going to start with exoplan. This is the exoplan DB. It's very similar to the dental CAD DB. When you start a new case here, you can type in the patient name, or you select one under the drop-down menu here, or you can go under this button here and just enter your new patient, birth date, and so on. Accept it, and it ends up in the list. Then you can click here on the tooth you want to work with, or at least one tooth you want to work with, and you can select your type here, your work type here. We have implant planning. This is special for exoplan. If you know what you're going to do on top of the implant, if you know you're going to do an anatomic crown afterwards, you can already here select anatomic crown, no problem. If you don't know yet, or if you just don't want to choose yet, you can select implant planning, doesn't matter. When you click that on, you get this material selection and just choose a material. This is not really important for the exoplan workflow, but this is how the dental DB is built up. When you click the material, you get here on the right side options and parameters. For exoplan, only the top two ones are of importance. So we have implant-based. Here you can select in the drop-down menu. If you know you're going to do a screw retained, you can select screw retained directly here. Or if you know it's going to be an abutment, you can choose that. But if you don't know, or if you don't want to decide yet, you can select abutment or screw retained, decide later. This is the one I always choose. It's the most open choice here. If you have a pre-op model, you can select yes here, and then the software will ask for the scan as well. The other parameters here are of no importance to us, so you can just ignore them for now. Then you click OK. And if you want to, you can, of course, mark the adjacent teeth, but it doesn't matter really. You can leave it also. And if you have an antagonist scan, you can mark a tooth in that jaw and say it's an antagonist, and then the software will know that or ask for the antagonist scan or load the antagonist scan as well. In here, you can type in notes, and then they will end up in the protocol at the end. After that, you save, and when you save, you have your project status below here, and your action button, implant planning here, is active, and you can carry on. Regarding the project status here, when I clicked saved, it creates a folder where everything is saved, and you can access this folder by going here under Open in Explorer. So here we can see that it's now created a project, dental project, and a preview of this setup. And if you have an integrated scanner, optical scan, intraoral scan, or so, these scans will also be loaded in here automatically. So I close this window and I will load our prepared case, which I have called patient Gertrud. This patient needs a implant tooth here for tooth 1-1. I've defined it as anatomic crown, and I've set it to abutment or screw retain the side later. I have also in this case marked the adjacent tooth here, number 2-1, because when we proceed later to the immediate load, we're going to use the 2-1 and mirror this tooth and use that as our base for the design. Antagonist is also marked. For implant planning, you need a CBCT or CT scan, which is Dicom data, and I have already put my Dicom data here in the project folder. So then I'm going to press Implant Planning to start our planning software. So if you have a connected and integrated optical scan, then your optical scans will be loaded automatically. So we will see this soon when the software opens. If you don't have a connected or integrated scanner, then you will be asked to load them manually. So now it's loading. There we see our optical scans, and directly our wizard starts. So we have the wizard down here in the left corner. The wizard tells us what to do all the time. So if you're unsecure, just read the text. Before we continue in the wizard, just take a look to the right. We have our main menu. We have the save button. We have an expert button. When we're more familiar with the software, we can go to expert instead of using the wizard workflow if we want to. There are also some tools to use. And then we have, if you have TrueSmile, that's an add-on module. You can use that as well. And then we have here a few buttons that I will return to. The help button at the end takes you directly to the user manual. It's good to check that one out if you have questions. So now I'll continue here in the wizard. It tells me to load my CT data. It's already checking for it in my project folder, and there they are. So I'll just click on that one. And it found it, so I'm going to load it here. So now I have my optical scans and my CT scan loaded. Up here is the Dicom Control. This is also a button here at the side, which I can turn it on and off with, like this. And the Dicom Control, let's take a look at that. I will hide my optical scans. I do that with the keyboard shortcuts, A for antagonist, S for jaw scan, D is for Dicom. So in the Dicom Control, I have a slider, which I can use to display different thresholds of the surface here. I can also look at the data as an X-ray or as a cube here. When I look at it as a cube, I can use the clippings as well. And I can slide through the slices here with the clipping. This is also available even if I'm in this view. I can also slide through the slices. For this case, since it's an upper jaw, I might want to take off or hide the bottom part here so that it doesn't distract me. So like this. Then I'll close this one a little bit. So now I'll continue in the wizard with next. This step here allows me to define some density references for soft tissue, bone, and enamel. Just use the slider here and set the threshold which shows you the soft tissue, then click on the soft tissue to save it. And then do the same for bone, save it. And for enamel, I can take some roots with me there. So now I've saved all these 3 values and I have access to them up here in the Dicom Control, so I can jump between these 3 values if I want to. But I can always use the slider here to access any threshold that I want to. I'll continue with next. In this next step, axial and view direction, you have the possibility to change the view direction and axial direction of the patient. This is normally not used, you don't have to do it. Like this patient was already placed correctly during the scan, the CBCT scan, so I'll just go next. And we are in the first step of the alignment. So now in this step here, I need to place 3 points at approximately the same position in both scans. So I'll look for some points. I can use the slider here if I want to display a better look of the teeth here. So I'll click on both scans. I place my points as far away from each other as I can to make the alignment a little better. And then I click Start 3-point alignment. So now we have moved the Dicom data to the location of the optical scan. If this looks good, which it does in this case, I can go directly to Start Best Fit Alignment. If the case is that I have a CBCT scan with much artifacts, I have some possibility here under the second tab, Improve Accuracy. Here I can choose to crop the CT mesh, or I can also mark feature regions on the model, just paint them. And if I do this, these areas that I paint or that I leave untouched by the cropping or by the cutting will then be used during the best fit alignment. It's not necessary in this case, so I'll just click and start the best fit alignment. And now the algorithms in the software are looking for the best fit here between these 2 data. It takes a few minutes. We will soon see a color scale here showing us how good our alignment is. So you see some dark blue there to the right, to the left, and now we'll see it also on the right side. So here we see we have a lot of dark blue. This is good. You can check it against the deviation scale here in the wizard window. Dark blue means 0 deviation. So when I'm happy with this, I can just click Acceptable Alignment and continue. If I'm not happy with it, I can still continue if I click No Acceptable Alignment, but I cannot continue all the way to the surgical guide design until I return to this step and make acceptable alignment. I'll choose acceptable here. And now in this next step, I can define the panoramic curve. So at the lower part of the screen, you see a secondary view panorama. And on the top part, you see a slice from the Dicom data. I can, when I'm in the top part with the mouse, scroll through the slices so that I come to an area where I want to draw my curve. And I can move the whole curve using the control point in the middle. And I can move the single points or add points to the curve to draw a nice panoramic curve. And as you can see, the panoramic view below is changing as I define my curve here. So we can have it like this maybe. Can change here the X-ray noise threshold as well a little bit. And then I go next. So we are going to use backward planning, which means that I will place a model tooth here to use as a guideline while placing my implant. I'll just click it, place it quickly with 2 clicks. I don't do anything with the placement right now. The only thing I could do, or I could change the library if I want to. In this case, it's not necessary, so I'll just go next. because we're going to still use a mirror copy for the actual design. So this tooth here will just be used for guidance of the implant placement. And now I can correct the position. So you see in this wizard window, you have move, rotate, and scale, which you can use. But I always leave it at move, and then I use the shortcuts. I press shift, and then I can scale my tooth, and I press control, and then I can rotate it. So let's just place it here roughly. If I click on the tooth or anywhere in the 3D view with my mouse wheel, my secondary views focuses on the point that I clicked. And now I can see the outline of the tooth also in the secondary views, and I can also here grab it and change the position. So, okay, let's move it a little bit. Okay, let's keep it there just for guidance for the implant. And I continue with next. In this step, I can define a density threshold with this slider. When I move the slider, you see the image changes blue and red here. I set it so that all blue parts, the blue parts are showing me dense material. This is later used to color in the implant. When I place it, we'll continue and you'll see that. Now we are in the implant positioning step. Since we placed the model tooth already, my secondary views knows which they know which part I'm interested in, so they already focus to this point. In my wizard window, I can select an implant. At the top, I have some favorites, and after that, all entries. And if you want to make an implant your favorite, you just click on the star. Oh, sorry, you click on the star. I missed the star. Click on the star, and then it ends up here on top as well. For this, I will use a bone level tapered guided implant. And I will just first, I place it roughly. I'm looking at the blue secondary view in the middle, and I place it roughly with a click. And as soon as I place an implant roughly, the secondary views, sorry, English is not my first language, but I changed this, the secondary views changes to implant focused views. And while we're talking now about the implant, the secondary views, we can take a look here at the implant control. If I activate this one, now we have some information here. Here you can see all the secondary views that are available to us, 8 is maximum, and we have 3 of them active right now: Panorama, Implant Cross, and Implant Axial. There are also 4 arrangements which you can choose from, how the views are arranged on the screen. So right now we have the focused view with 3 secondary views active. On the second tab here, we have some information about which implant we have placed. And then later on, we will also have here sleeve information. And if we place more than 1 implant, we will also here have the angles between the implants displayed. I'll close this one for now. So now when we place the implant, I start like this. I hide the Dicom, and then I look at the model, and I first place the implant where I want it to come out, or the drill channel to come out of the crown. Of course, this is, you have to find your own way, what you are most comfortable with here. So I'd like it to come out there. But of course, we have to check the bone situation. And when I do that, I enlarge the blue secondary view by clicking this button. And here I can see, okay, there's no bone there at all, so I have to move it. I can either use this arrow here to tilt it a little bit, or I grab the whole implant and move it. And then if I press my right mouse button and move the mouse, I can scroll around the implant and check the situation all around it. So I know that for this case, as you can see, the doctor would probably have done a bone augmentation first so that I could place my implant down here. If I do that now, you see the implant turns red, which shows me, because of the threshold we set earlier, it shows me there's no dense bone there. There's actually no bone there. So, but I'm going to ignore that this is where it's actually supposed to go after a bone augmentation, and just place it here in the bone for now. So we're not learning how to place implants correct here. We're just learning the software. If I want a longer one, I could either choose it here, of course, but I can also just use this arrow here on the implant and drag it upwards, and then it changes to a longer version of this implant. I'll scroll around to check the position. Maybe I'll tilt it a little bit. Yeah. Let's say this is fine. And if I want to, I can also place a tie base. They have the libraries. So let's choose one here. And maybe we'll take this one. A little bit longer, maybe. Yeah, let's take that one. And I'll check again at the model. Yeah. All right, keep it like this and continue with next. And in the next step, I can place a sleeve for to guide my drills later on. Since I've chosen a fully guided implant, I'm presented with the sleeve that goes with this system. And this sleeve has 3 placement positions. I can only choose between these 3. I cannot place the sleeve anywhere else. It jumps to the closest one to that. I can, of course, choose another one. Here I can see that this manufacturer has a smaller one for small interdental spaces, or also one for pilot drilling only. But I can also choose a generic sleeve from another manufacturer if I want to. So if I do that, I'll choose this one. Then I don't have these steps, so I can place my sleeve anywhere, not below the implant, of course, but here. When I use this type of sleeve, I have to look at you see the measurements there, so I have to know where I place it. So maybe I place it around here, and then I have a 24.5 millimeter long drill for this one. So let's do that. And I'll continue with next. Now in this step, the doctor has to approve of the planning. So I'm not a doctor, I will cancel this. And then I'll click in the background and I save a scene. And then I'll call the scene pre-planning. I save it and I send it to my doctor or my partner, or whoever is gonna approve the planning. That person opens the scene, checks it, maybe do some corrections, and then opens this approval of planning again and confirms this planning. And as soon as it's confirmed, the output data are written, which we have to wait a little bit for it to be written here. And then we'll have a implant planning report, and we can check that one out as well. So now with this button, we can come to the report directly. Let's take a look. So the first page here, you have the patient information. Then you have table of contents. And then you have Dicom information directly from the CBCT data. And here would the notes have been saved if I would have added some notes. We have the panoramic view clean. Then we have I scrolled in the wrong way. Panoramic view clean, panoramic view with the implant and the sleeve. Then an implant overview, some general information, and at the end we have a detailed information about the implant placement or implant site. So then I'll continue with next. Our implant plan is done, and we can now, if we have Guide Creator, continue to do the design of the surgical guide, which we'll do. First thing to do when designing the surgical guide here is to design the area around the sleeve, the material holding the sleeve here. We call it mounts. You can have some sliders here in the wizard window. To set a value to this, I will take a 2 millimeter, maybe just type it in like this. You can also, if you want to have it lay on the gingiva, you can here add some length to it. But in this case, I will keep it as short as possible so that it's just covering the sleeve to keep an open space here for irrigation or good view. The red cylinder here on top is the clearance above. This area, this value is locked when you start as a default, but you can unlock it by a click here, and then you can select if you want a larger area of clearance. Any material that are inside of this cylinder will be cut away from the guide to make room for tools, and we'll get some natural windows here on the front teeth as well. We'll see that now. Continue with next. Let me hide the Dicom Control so that it's not showing there. In this next step, I'm setting the insertion direction for the guide. I set it, turn the model from view. I set here insertion direction from view, and then I apply it. And now all the areas here that are darker will be blocked out. I have some values here, sliders that I could change. I left them as they are. The offset is at 0.03 millimeter. This is the distance between the model and the bottom side of the guide. So how snug it will sit on the teeth, how tight it will sit. I also have a slider here, how much undercuts I want to allow. It's at 0.1 millimeter right now, which means all undercuts that are larger than 0.1 millimeter are blocked out. We can see that here now when we have our blocked out model. Like here, for instance, it's blocked out. Now when it's created, I have the option also to go under freeforming. So if I realize I do want some retention here, I can easily just remove some of the block out. And then I will also have retention here when I do my design. I'll continue with next. And in this step, I will draw the outline of the surgical guide top. So I'll do that by clicking and drawing a curve here. I will draw 2 curves. I do that because I want to keep this area here free from material. So I end the curve with a double click, and then I start the second curve over here. Like this.
Yeah.
And do a double click. Yes?
So, sorry to interrupt you.
No problem.
There's an interesting question which I was not really able to answer to. I guess there's maybe a workaround, you know it, or maybe there's an official feature. In case you are working with multiple implants, is it possible to create two guides, one after another? So that means that you do a planning, for example, with 4 implants, and then you do first a guide with just 2 of them, and then later you do another guide with the other 2. As far as I know, the software, I guess, is trying to include all the sleeves into the guide you are planning.
Yes,
or do you have an idea?
I don't know. You can. Let's say if you place 2 implants in the first quadrant and 2 implants in the second quadrant, you can in this step make 2 guides at the same time. You don't have to connect them. But if you mean that you want to create a guide where the implants, let's say all of the implants are in quadrant 1, and you just want to make 2 guides with different implants on it, you have to
I guess that's the situation. So I guess that he's trying to do 2 guides because maybe implants are placed very closely together. You know what I mean? So that you first do drilling with one guide, and then you use the other guides because maybe one implant is directly next to the other one. That's my assumption as a reason for this.
Yeah. In that case, he has to go through the step twice. So he doesn't have to go through all the steps, but you can plan. Let me think. No, you have to go through it twice.
But anyways,
Mhm.
I
Anyways,
think it's not a problem if all the sleeves are included in the first splint, so you just have then not to use this slot for the
yeah.
sleeve and create the second guide. That's what I would say. And then you create
Alternatively, if the problem is that the sleeves don't have enough place, you can, when you do your implant planning, you can choose to not place sleeves for all 4 implants. So say you have 4 implants, and then you just place a sleeve for 1 and 3, and you save the 2 and 4. You don't place any sleeves for implant 2 and 4.
Okay.
You have the possibility to skip the sleeve placement during the implant planning, and if you do that, you have the sleeve placement as your first step during the guide design. And then if you only place 2 sleeves, you will create a guide with only 2 sleeves for these implants. But still, you have to, when you do the second guide, you have to start by placing the other 2 sleeves. Is this clear?
Yeah,
so
I
the
think
implant
that's,
planning can be done for 4 implants. Then
yes, so that's exactly, I think that's, yeah. And I asked him, he said, yeah, that this is answered now. Okay. Yeah, it's clear you do the planning once. I didn't know that when placing the sleeves that you don't have to place all the sleeves. So then you start again. So you finish a guide and you restart again in the step by placing the sleeves, and then you place all the sleeves. Okay, perfect.
if you do these type of things, you need to work in the expert mode,
Yeah, of
because
course.
if you have more implants and they all use the same sleeve, then in the wizard workflow, it will present you with all the sleeves at the same time. So what you do is you switch to expert, and then you click on the implant you want to place sleeves for, and you activate sleeve placement for this implant, or you can activate it for 2 implants at the same time.
Okay, I think we have to proceed now. So.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Okay. So yeah, because time is running.
Oh,
okay.
yeah, sure.
Thank you. It's perfectly answered.
Okay. So I've drawn the 2 curves here, and I will apply them. So before I apply, of course, I can choose the thickness here, but not a problem. I can choose it now and just apply it again. Let's take it 2 millimeters. Let's check the appliance here. If I see, okay, I want it to be tighter here, I can just add points here. And I can also move points that I've already placed, and then I just apply again, and it will use these new points. So now I have a guide of 2 millimeter thickness, and I continue to the next step. This step here, I can place windows. I have here I can place different structures. I have a drop-down menu here. I can place windows for fit check, a support if I need that, or texts. So let's place a window. So I'll go here. I'll place it. Let's make it a little bit smaller. And if I want to rotate this structure here, I just click Control, and then I can rotate it. So let's see. I check with preview how my window is. Okay, let's keep it like this. And I'll just place 1 window now if the time is running. I can place a support. Let's place 1 round support here, because could be useful depending on your production method. Sometimes maybe your printer wanted to be a little bit more supported here. And also I can place a text, embossed or debossed. Let's place the text here. It takes the patient name automatically. Let's turn it around a little bit so we can read it better. But of course I can change this, so I'll take off the last part here. So my patient Gertrud, there she is. When I'm happy with this, I go next, and my guide is merged. Oh, I got a little merge issue there. Let's see. When this happens, this is, by the way, already fixed, but sometimes this happens. I'll go next, and I'll check if it's maybe this structure is red, and that was the problem. Let's try it again. Okay. I'll activate this one and delete it. And I'll activate Gertrud and I'll delete that one too. Let's do it again. Oh, sorry, new. Let's see if it takes it now. So now it's merged. As I said, there is a small issue there, but it's already fixed. And I think it's already fixed in the version that you can download from the website. My version is a little bit older, I'm sorry. So now after merging the guide, you can do some freeforming if you need. So you have small regions or huge region tool here. If I use the huge region, I can move the material, make it thicker. If I realize, okay, it's a little bit thin, I just drag it out a bit here. Not necessary in this case. I can also use the normal freeforming tool here and add material. Maybe this is a little bit thin here. So I can just add a little bit of material to make it a little bit thicker. And smooth it if I want to. There are some areas that are protected, like for instance here where the sleeve will come in. This I can't change, of course, because then the sleeve wouldn't fit.
Yeah, it's again me. As we are right now in this step, I had a question here. So you are not allowed, so the question is, are you allowed to use attachments as you are used to do it in the free form merged of the DentalCAD software?
No, we don't have the attachment function here.
Is there
like
a reason?
We have in the CAD. I think the reason is as simple like the developers didn't see the need for it, and to get this function in here, it's probably not that much work, but as soon as we add something to the medical product like this, we have to test it thoroughly, which takes time. But I will write it down, and if you want to, you can send an email to feedback@exocad with this as a request and tell us why you want it, and then we will then give it to this request to the developers as well with a good explanation why you would need this.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
So, all right, then I'm done with my guide design. I click next and the guide is finished and my protocol is generated. We'll take a look at the protocol here. So let's do it. So the first page, also here, have the patient information. And the second page, I have information what implant has been placed, which sleeve will be used in this guide. And at the bottom, the surgical kit and drill information. In this case, only the kit name is there. And since I placed it manually, I have to, by myself, know which drill to use. I can see the distance here from by the sleeve information, how long my sleeve needs to, my drill needs to be. If I had chosen a complete, fully guided sleeve, then also the drill would be here in the protocol. So now I continue with next, and we're finished in exoplan and guide creator, and we'll continue to the immediate load. I will first open in Explorer, and then I'll just copy, Control-C, this path to my project. Then I go to my dental DB for my plot div. I go under load and I say import from exocad project. And then in this search, I'll just paste the path to my project. And here it is, and I can just import it. And now here I have my patient case. So I'll click design and continue to the immediate load. Now the CAD software is opening. So it now feels that, okay, we have some implant planning information here and asks me if I want to load it. And that here I have two choices. I can load the planned implant position. Of course, I want to do that. And I can also load the tooth setup, but I will not do that because we only use it as a guidance now. And I'll use a copy, mirror the neighboring tooth instead. So here we have our case. We have the implant and the abutment or the tie base is there. And as you can see here, I still have the choice. I can select another type of abutment or tie base. So, but I'll leave it as it is for now, and I'll just continue. Next step, I'll draw my emergence profile. I'll just draw it here. Don't know how it's going to look in the end though, but just make a little profile here. And I go next. So here we are in the copy tooth. I will mirror this tooth here to 1. Click on the tooth, and then I get a mirrored tooth, which I can place here roughly. I can, if I want to, with Control here, adjust the placement, but I can also just continue when this is checked. I can continue to advanced placement here and correct the placement further. So let's place our tooth here. Now, we have a little time. I guess you will do this quicker than me. I'll just make it a little bit larger maybe. So we have some contact points. All right. Take it down a bit. There's also under True Smile an effect. If you right-click True Smile, you can choose plaster, and then you see everything in the plaster color. I like this function because you can see the form better then. I'll well, let's turn on the normal True Smile again, and I'll keep it like this and continue. Next step, I can design my abutment bottom here. So this is the same as in the implant module for CAD. So I'm not going to go into any details here. You just I'll leave it at this and continue. And now it's creating my tooth. So, and at the end, I can do some freeforming. Let's turn off True Smile. I find it easier looking at it like this. And we can maybe move it a little bit here. Try to make it look a little bit nicer. I'm sure you guys listening can make a much nicer crown than this, but well. All right, let's just leave it at that. And next. Now I have the canal, cut intersections, I'm sorry. Yes, we will cut some intersections, occlusal and proximal. You could, of course, also use cut all intersection and not cut them twice, but yeah. I'll go next.
Okay, again, so it's yeah, it's quite funny. So today we have really a lot of questions here.
Yeah, that's good.
And yeah, there's one question. Maybe there's a word I'm not understanding. So it's about the marker for the rotation position of the hexagon on the guide, and he's asking, does it keep spatial information? Do you know the word SPA?
Spatial.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Lucas. Maybe he knows better, but I think that's how it's in the world, how it's located.
Yeah, I think he's asking if the guide saves in the position that it was designed on the model, or if it's just kind of a generic default position.
Well, it's if there is, you can. Well, sorry. It is possible to make a marker on the guide that correlates to the implant connection. So if you, for instance, if you place a angled abutment, it's very important that you have the same, that you know exactly how the implant should be put in. And in that case, you will just, when you place your implant and your angled abutment, you rotate your implant so that it's sitting like you want it. And then in the guide creator, you can add a marker I didn't do this now because it wasn't necessary here. You can just choose to add a marker during the design of the material around the sleeve. And this marker is either, you can choose if it's going to mark the hex pointing to the vestibular or to the, so if you have a hex like this, it will point to the edge or to the flat part. You can choose to mark one of the, or you can choose to mark all of them if you want to.
Okay. Yeah, no, he's asking, if the reference is kept, so if I understand, he's now writing, it's not that whole guide to the model. So he's talking about the reference between the guide and the model. So if the guide is saved or exported as an STL, if it's at the same position.
Coordinate system.
Coordinates, yeah, exactly, in the same coordinate
Yes.
system as the model. Yes, okay.
It is. Yes, it is.
There's another question which I quickly like to ask you before you proceed. Is it possible now to show or to display the guide during the immediate load design? Can you now?
If I go to expert here, and I use under tools you have. Did I start freeforming? Okay, I didn't mean to do that. On the tools, I can here add and remove mesh. And then I can select how I want to. I choose generic visualization mesh here. And I load.
Okay. That's a kind of workaround. So there's no direct possibility in the show height window to display it directly.
No, it's not there, but I can import it here. And just have it in the scene.
Okay, thank you.
I'll cancel this one here. So.
Okay, so you can continue.
Okay, starting the wizard again. We were in this step here. Turn off the antagonist here, and I will turn off. Choose not to have that one, and I'll go next. It was almost finished, so I'm finished now. And here we have our little crown. So that's it, guys. I'll finish, merge, and save the restoration, and we're done.
Okay.
Now we have time for more questions.
Yeah, then let's still a couple of questions. So, are these two separate modules? Yeah, just to explain again, exoplan and DentalCAD have different licenses. So you will have one dongle for each. So for example, the DentalCAD dongle is blue and the exoplan is brown. Then the guide creator is an add-on module for the exoplan dongle. And what you see here in the immediate load, this is part of the DentalCAD, which is an add-on module, the implant module. You need the implant module to create any kind of implant restoration. And it's just the implant module, which is just importing the position of the implant from the planning software compared to a normal process where you scan a scan body. Okay, I think that's answered. Just right. Next question.
I have one here. Somebody asked, I think maybe they were a little confused about the density threshold step. How do you know where to place that? What should be marked blue and red? They asked maybe if you can explain that step a little bit.
Yeah, I'll do my best.
That's kind of challenging to determine.
I'm going to start the implant planning again, the software, and open that step. So to be honest, it's not my favorite step. I don't use it, but I know Michelle, you like it. So the idea is that you set a threshold value, which colors in. You decide at what density level you show as blue. So let me just start it here. And it doesn't say anything specific about the density in different areas more than the red areas are less dense than the blue areas. So what I say when I give a training, I always say, okay, make sure that all your blue parts are bone, but not all your bone can be blue. Does it make sense? Let's open the step here. Density threshold. So here it is. This is the cube. This is the cube of the data. And you can here with the slider, you can slide to the point of interest. In this case, we already were there. So you can see here that you see the data underneath. And if I go here with the threshold very high, everything is red. You can see a bit of a structure here. And I know this is dense, right? So I want that to be blue. So I just go lower the threshold until these areas are colored in blue. But we have a lot of different densities in our bone, so I can't make everything. There's also air inside, so I can't make all of this blue without coloring in some of the air as well, or the less dense material. So what I do here is I just make sure that I have the denser parts here blue, and not all my bone is blue now, but this is how I use it. It's more of a guideline for when you place the implant later on. You can see that if it's sticking out somewhere, you can see, oh, it's red there. Let's check it out. Okay, I have some bone anyway. It's not as dense, but it's okay. Or maybe like in this case here, there was no bone where I wanted to place it when I place it more occlusal. So then the implant was red. Was this okay explanation, or do we need to?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I think that should help them out.
I have another question here. I've been asked right at the beginning of the demonstration, and now he's asking, or maybe he's reminding me not to forget it. So when you're talking about the degree of the implant, if you have just a single implant, what is the plan giving the degree of implant? So it is it's in relation to what? First implant, bottom of a table. So if we have two implants, of course, you see an angle between the two implants, but if you have just one implant.
If you have just one implant, you don't see an angle. So here, implant angle, there is no angle.
Okay.
Is that what he's asking about? This only shows the angle between the implants.
Okay, let's see. I just then another simple question: is it possible to continue with the model creator? Of course, if you have STL data of any kind of model of jaw scan, you can use the model creator in Adventurous software to create a model. Maybe you need that to put the guide on it to deliver the guide.
But you need the CAD with the model creator.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you need. Another interesting question: is it possible to use other type of implants, or let's say other type of libraries, which are not included in the software or which cannot be downloaded on our website? Let's say to use self-made libraries.
This is not something that we recommend. If you know what you're doing, nothing's stopping you. It's an open software, of course. But the library structure for exoplan is pretty complicated, or what's a nicer word for that? Yeah.
Complex, I guess.
Complex. Yeah. So I wouldn't do that if I don't know what I'm doing.
But it's possible. So in theory, there's nothing blocking you from
nothing stopping you. It's a normal XML data.
But there's a big warning, and in the report there's a warning as well.
Yeah, there will be information when you load such an implant library. You will get a warning on the display here on the screen here. When you load, it will say this is an unsigned library. Are you sure you want to continue? And you can do it if you want to.
Another interesting question. Somebody is asking why sometimes features from the DentalCAD are not available here. Like, for example, now you were able to copy or mirror the other tools, but in exoplan you were not able to do that.
No. The reason why not...
You explained that already during the demonstration. You said already, so that we need to test. Yeah, but maybe now you can repeat it again. So.
Yeah, so the reason why we don't have all the features of the CAD software in exoplan is because exoplan is a medical device, which means there are a lot of things that needs to be, everything has to be tested and approved because of regulations. So it takes a lot of time to test this and do all the protocols, and that's why we can't just implement them and put them in the software, but we are working on putting more and more stuff in there, but everything we put in has to be tested thoroughly and documented, and this takes time.
Okay. Another question, do you need the permission of company to add their implants? Does exoplan works for, yeah, that's...
We collaborate with the manufacturer of the implants. So all implants that we have in our download portal are in cooperation with the manufacturer of those implants. So they send us the data, they send us the information about the implant positioning and so
on. Does exoplan work for edentulous patients?
Not this version. In the next version, it is possible, and the next version will be coming soon.
And bone reduction guides, that's also not possible in this version.
No, bone reduction is not possible in this version. It's on the to-do list. We know that's a request, and it is not included as a supported workflow in the next release either. But I know, well, there's always workarounds. We don't promote those, but you can play around with the software.
Yeah. There's now one question. One question about the design of the implant restoration. Wouldn't it be easier to first make the final restoration and then draw the emergence profile? In theory, you don't have to define any emergence profile. You can just simply skip the step when defining the emergence profile border, and you just define the entire restoration if it's a screw retained crown or whatever, and then later on you can define emergence profile border.
Yeah. All these things are the same in the implant module for CAD, and I think we have a detailed video about that on our YouTube channel. Could that be the case, Michelle? So if you go to, that could be the case, right, Michael, that we have a video for the implant module, how to use that. So on youtube.com, we have the exocad, a lot of videos, and you can check it out there, find out more. And let me also talk a little bit about the library integration. On our webpage, exocad.com, we have integration. And if you go under that tab, you have here exoplan library integration. Under here, you have a lot of implants that you can download to your exoplan software. So you can sort them by letters here. So let's take a look. I had a Straumann implant in the planning now. So if you go here, you have a lot of implants that you can download. What you need is the implant library, and you need a sleeve and kit guide creator and anchor pins for the next version as well, so that you can download. What we also, if you want to, let me show you here, if you want to display or place an abutment or tie base during your planning, you also need to include the dental CAD libraries, and then you go under dental CAD library integration here, and you download the compatible ones here. And here is also an overview of which libraries that are compatible to exoplan.
Okay, I think let's go on with the last question here. How do you design for edentulous patients? So we all know, okay, this is not available yet in this release, but in the next release it will be available. How does it work? Maybe you can explain the dual scan protocol.
Yes, well, as you said, Michael, we will use, we have a workflow with a dual scan protocol. In that case, you have a radio POC prosthesis or a radio radiographic guide, it's called. That's either a denture, a copy of the denture, or you have the actual denture, and you place radio-opaque markers in this denture, and the patient wears the denture with a bite index during the X-ray or during the CBCT scan. And then you scan the guide in the CBCT scan also, the radiographic guide alone in the CBCT scan. And then in exoplan, you load both of these dicoms and it's matched over the radiopaque markers. And through that, you have the position of the gingiva, which the gingiva is not visible in the patient X-ray, right? Because it's so soft, low density. And then you can use the guide design, the radiographic guide in your design. We'll do a nicer presentation of this workflow when we have the software. Is that okay?
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's it.
Now.
So time is running out.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is tomorrow morning. I think there's again the same webinar in English. So for all those, if you still have questions, you could maybe join the webinar tomorrow and ask your question then. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elin. Thank you, Lucas. Thanks you all
everybody.
for being here.
Guys.
And
thanks for watching.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.